The air hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and something far more ancient as we stepped into the abandoned park that moonless night. My coworker, Luis, adjusted his handheld camera with trembling fingers, the red recording light cutting through the thick darkness like a warning beacon. We shouldn't have been there. Not at 2:37 a.m., not in Parque de los Lamentos, where 7 people had drowned in the past decade alone. The police tape from the most recent incident still fluttered from the rusted gate, a faded yellow ribbon whispering warnings we chose to ignore. Everyone in our city knew the stories. The massive oak tree near the center of the lake, its gnarled branches stretching like skeletal fingers over water so black it seemed to swallow the moonlight whole. That's where they found Marisol Vargas in '83, her small body floating face up despite the current that should have carried her away. The medical examiner noted something peculiar. Her lungs were filled with brackish water, but her clothing was completely dry. After her came the others. A homeless man in '91, 2 teenagers in '98 holding hands even in death, a park caretaker in 2007 whose radio kept playing static-filled lullabies for weeks after they pulled him from the water. Luis had been obsessed with this place since we were kids, trading ghost stories after dark. His YouTube channel, Beyond the Veil, was his life's work. 3 years of chasing shadows in haunted hospitals and abandoned asylums, always coming up just short of real evidence. "This time will be different," he'd whispered as we cut through the chain-link fence, his breath coming too fast. "They say the veil is thinnest here, that she walks the shore when the moon is dark." I followed him deeper into the park, my boots sinking into mud that clung like grasping fingers. The stone fountain at the center had once been beautiful. Now its cherub statues wept black streaks of mildew, their smiling mouths gaping in silent screams. As Luis set up his equipment, I noticed something odd about the rainwater in the basin. It moved when nothing else did, forming tiny whirlpools that defied the still air. When I shone my light directly at it, the beam fractured into prismatic shards before disappearing entirely. The first hour passed in eerie silence. Just the occasional creak of branches and the distant hum of the city beyond the park gates. Sounds that should have been comforting, but only emphasized how alone we were. Luis began his usual spiel for the camera, but his voice kept catching. "Local records show..." "Christ, did you hear that?" He'd whirl toward the lake, camera shaking, capturing nothing but darkness. I told myself it was just nerves, but my skin prickled with the unmistakable sense of being watched from the water's edge. At exactly 3:30 a.m., winter came in an instant. Our breath plumed in the humid air as the temperature plummeted. The stray dogs, 15 at least, their ribs visible through patchy fur, all woke as one. They didn't growl or bark, just stood frozen, ears flattened, before bolting in unison. One elderly mastiff turned back at the tree line, his milky eyes reflecting our flashlight beams as he let out a howl that raised the hair on my arms. Then silence so complete it pressed against my eardrums. The camera captured what our eyes couldn't. Footprints appearing in the mud, small, bare feet moving in circles around our equipment. The audio picked up whispers beneath the static. A woman's voice murmuring in no language I recognized, yet somehow understood. "She's hungry," it said. "She's been waiting." Luis's face went ashen when we played it back, his fingers leaving sweat marks on the screen. We should have left then. But some morbid fascination rooted me to the spot as Luis, ever the documentarian, trained his camera on the lake. The viewfinder showed what our eyes couldn't see, a pale shape moving just beneath the surface, long hair fanning out like water plants. Then the sobbing started, not from any direction, but inside my skull, vibrating behind my eyes. It wasn't until later I realized the audio had picked it up too, a child's voice beneath the woman's wails, begging for help in perfect Spanish. The walk back to the gates took a lifetime. My skin crawled with the sensation of cold fingers brushing my neck, though nothing was there. Just before we reached the exit, I made the mistake of looking back. She stood waist-deep in the water, her tattered white dress floating around her like a shroud. The moonlight, when had the moon returned, passed right through her, illuminating the small shapes clinging to her skirts. Pale, bloated things with black holes for eyes. The gate slammed shut behind us with enough force to rattle the chains. Luis deleted every file that night, but the footage had already imprinted itself behind my eyelids. He stopped sleeping, stopped eating, just sat staring at his blank computer screen, whispering about hands in his dreams. Last I heard, he'd checked himself into a psychiatric ward upstate. They say he still screams when it rains. I kept one copy hidden in a safety deposit box downtown. Not because I want to remember, but because I need proof I'm not going mad. Because the footprints in the park weren't the end of it. Last Tuesday, I woke to find wet footprints leading from my shower to the foot of my bed. The security cam showed nothing but static during those hours, but the audio, God, the audio. That same child's voice, clearer now, saying, "You promised you'd come play with us." And the lake, Christ, the lake. It's miles from my apartment, but when I open my curtains at night, I swear I can see its glassy surface reflecting back at me from the empty lot across the street. Sometimes there are shapes moving beneath that impossible water. Sometimes they wave. Worst of all, I think I'm starting to recognize their faces.